What's up guys, my name's Renee April. I'm a young adult author with my debut coming out in November. I'm also the host of One Chapter Wonder, which is a show where I read out the first chapters of indie authors. This is the first in what I hope will become a series of writing videos. About a month ago, I ran a poll on Twitter where I asked what kind of outlining structures people use. The poll got a really good response. A lot of people did pick from the options I'd listed. However, a big number of responses said that they didn't know what those outline methods were. A lot of people just don't outline as well, so if that's you, awesome. I'm totally here for the pantsers. I'm extremely jealous of you, but I do need a bit of a structure to grow. After receiving a couple of questions about what those methods were that I was asking about, I decided to try out a new novel idea using those three methods myself. So the three novel outlining methods that I listed were 9-block, Snowflake, and Structure Plus. Out of all of the responses, a lot of people are most familiar with the Snowflake method, and I do think it is one of the most popular methods out there because it is really easy to understand. It's very attractive because the amount of work starts small and then you work your way up. So I decided to try this new novel idea that I had and put it into these three methods to see which outlining structure suited me best. The first outlining method that I decided to try was 9-block, which was made popular by the YouTuber Katie Tastic. So her video on it can be found up here, and I do recommend you go and watch it. I have already spammed it all over Twitter in response to people going, what the heck is that outlining method? And I loved it. So basically, you make a grid with 9 squares, 3 acts, 27 chapters. So you're going to have 3 chapters in each square. And she does a really good job of explaining what those squares should pertain to in your story and what should be happening and the difference between Act 1, 2, and 3. I found this way to be really, really good. I went from having no outline to a complete start, middle, and end. It's just really good the way she's laid it out. So if you are new to outlining, this is the first one that I would recommend checking out for you. The second method I tried was the Snowflake method, which was made popular by Randy Ingermanson. So the idea with the Snowflake method is that you start with a sentence, which then you expand into a paragraph, and then you expand into a page. I think this method is really attractive to a lot of writers because one line we can usually come up with okay. I took a couple of lines, I spent about an hour drafting them out, and then I took bits and pieces from each line until I had a sentence that I was pretty happy with. So my line for my Australian horror gothic is, a young woman flees colonial Sydney, desperate to escape the ghost of the man she killed. So I was pretty happy with this first line. I felt like it totally outlined where I wanted to go with this story. It gives you an idea of the theme, it gives you an idea of the setting. We know we're in colonial Sydney, so it's going to be around the 1800s. We know that she's murdered someone, so there promises to be action. And we know that this ghost is coming after her, which hopefully promises a little bit of gothic horror, which is a new genre that I'm stepping into, but so far I'm having a ton of fun with it. So after we have our one line, we expand into paragraphs. This is where I got a little bit stuck, but he does recommend that you go into disaster 1, disaster 2, disaster 3, and then end. So this is what we need our story structure to be. It is similar to 9-block in that we have almost a 3-act structure, but here is almost 4 acts, as the end seems to be its own portion of the outline. So for disaster 1, there's an altercation between her, a man, and her brother, which ends with her brother and the assailant dead on the floor of her house. She knows she's going to hang for murder, so she leaves. She leaves the only place that she's known for her entire life and heads off into the Australian outback. Disaster 2 is that the party she's travelling with finds out that she's a murderess, and they don't want to harbour a murderer. In a time of bushrangers and hangings and shootings and just gangs, this was a very turbulent time to be out in the bush, to be a woman, to be a murderer. So this is a really turning moment for her as she's turfed out of this party halfway between Sydney and Adelaide in 1839. She's left on her own, she has her horse, she has her pack, and that's it. She's also got some company along the way as the ghost of the man that she actually murdered seems to have come with them. Disaster 3 is kind of still in the making. I'm not sure if this suits the narrative that I'm going for, but she gets lost in a fog, which is actually really common to happen out in some of the colder parts of Australia. She follows a light that we in Australia call a min-min light. They are generally a bad omen, and people who follow one are kind of never seen again, or they're led to their death kind of thing. So against her better judgment, she follows this min-min light out into the Australian outback, desperate to get away from whatever is haunting her, desperate to find her way to Adelaide on her own. It doesn't end well, and she kind of ends up really turned around on the tablelands in South Australia, which I have been, And it's a really scary place, and it's a really scary time to be. I'm imagining that at night, I'm imagining heavy fog, I'm imagining someone without modern GPS and just panicking. So I'm really excited to see how that bit of the narrative goes, but I'm not so sure about the more fantastical elements that I seem to be bringing in. The end, I don't really want to say what the end is going to be on camera. I know a general rough idea of what's going to happen, so I might keep that one to myself, but it was a nice little cap to put on the end of this outline. After that, you take your paragraphs and you turn it into a full-page synopsis. This was a little too detail heavy to include in this video, but I did manage to get some of the answers that I needed when I was asking what do I need to research, what do I need to make sure that I know, what themes I'm going for in this story, and what her personal journey is going to be through this actual physical journey from Sydney to Adelaide. So I found that this method was actually really good, and it holds up. A lot of people recommend the Snowflake method, and I'm going to be one of them as well. If you're a new writer and you've never outlined before, definitely check out the Snowflake method. I'm going to put a link to it up here in the corner so you can check it out and have a go at it. Just spend an afternoon on it and see how you go. The third method that I tried was Structure Plus, which is sometimes confused or mixed with Signpost. So this is a much more traditional method of outlining. It's probably the kind of outlining that you did in middle school or in young high school. It's the kind of outlining that I've tried in the past without really knowing what it was, and it's very intense. So it's basically a paragraph of what happens, the setting that's in it, the conversations that are going to happen, the characters involved, and it's just it's a lot of work, and I do understand why people go for this, but for me it was just a little too heavy to go scene by scene, especially as I find that if I start writing scene by scene, I become very one-track mind, and my story doesn't really wander and grow and develop naturally. So while it didn't suit me, it may suit you. I totally recommend checking it out, just in case you want to get your head around all these outlining ideas that I'm putting here in this video. Because I was curious, because so many people on the previous poll said that they just didn't outline at all, I ran a second poll with just a yes or no answer to do you outline, and the majority was yes. So I didn't really know what to make of that data. So if you do outline and you are here at this video, let me know how you go, chuck it down in the comments, message me on Twitter, I'll be there. We're gonna outline your story, we're gonna get this going, and I would love to know how you guys get along with this. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, bye!